Welcome to the Small But Mighty Marketing Podcast, episode 6. We're going to be talking about why the agency client relationship is broken and how it can be repaired. I'm Shinhee Sun, Director of Growth, and I have.
Josh Becerra, President, CEO at Augurian.
Okay, here we go. So, I'm going to start off here with a surprising stat that I came across in this survey. And in this stat, in 2021, 30% of brands were likely to change their primary relationship.
Okay.
2022, that moved up to 38%. And then
All
in
right.
2023, it's now at 55% of companies that are planning to leave their primary agency
Wow.
in the next 6 months.
Yeah. Sounds
Clearly,
like opportunity to me.
clearly there's something that's wrong between the two.
Yeah.
And that's what we're here to talk about.
Okay.
I think there's a lot to dig in there. And
So what did they say? What were some of the main causes?
Yeah, well, the top reason being like more than half of these people have said that it's value. That
Okay.
they're not getting the value that they need
Mm-hmm.
from their agency partners.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the first thing we're going to talk about. So, I mean, what are your thoughts about them saying that that they're not getting the value?
So I think that it's interesting the words that we choose to describe like what is breaking in our relationships. And this can go for anything, but we're talking about agency relationships today. Because I feel like value feels more like a symptom to me than actually the root cause.
Okay.
So like value, like lack of results or too expensive or like communication or any of those things feel like those are words that we're using to describe kind of the symptoms. But for me, like what we really need to be talking about are the feelings and emotions that marketers are having when they're like, this agency isn't working for me. And for me, those feelings, emotions all like come into confidence. And we talk a lot about confidence. And
Yeah.
so if you feel like you're lacking value, that's because you're lacking confidence. If you feel like there isn't a great communication, that's because you are lacking confidence. If you feel like you aren't getting results, that the emotion is like, I don't feel like confident in this partner. And that's when people start to look around and say, where can I go? Where can I find someone who will give me that confidence, will actually deliver on what they say they're going to deliver on, will help me in my role get the results that I need to get. So for me, value, it's a word that I think people use to describe more of a feeling or an emotion that they have around the relationship that they may be having with their agency.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. I think there's two different factors, like macro factors, right? There are things that we can't control as marketers that will impact value.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are things that are within our control. And today we're going to be talking about things that are in our control, but things that are outside of our control could be the economy, the political cycle.
Sure.
There are just all these things that are happening that can make the results harder to come by.
Yep.
And could also put pressure on everyone that's involved.
Yep.
But then the things that are in our control, you really nailed it on the head, right? And I think there's a lot of different ways you can get value,
Mm-hmm.
right? And a lot of agencies coming into relationship, the very first thing I feel like usually is I need to hit the KPIs. I need to hit the results. But there's a lot more to a relationship than just hitting the results,
Yep.
right? And I think you're talking about like it's a symptom of a root cause.
Yep.
But I think there are some other things, like, for example, when you're going into an agency relationship, it's really important to know what you're even looking for to begin with.
True.
Right.
Yep.
And so some of you might be thinking, okay, I just need to hit my KPI. That's really it. I don't care about anything else. Like, that's it. Some of you are looking for an advisor, more of an advisor type of role that will help you think better and be more strategic.
Right.
So really where I'm getting to is there's just so many different ways a value that you can get from an agency partner, and it's really important that you really look within yourself first.
Yeah. I also think that a lot of, at least the conversations that I have, what marketers are looking for is someone to like take this body of work. Like marketers are busy. We're uh, not only in charge of the paid media and the SEO and the analytics, we're in charge of email marketing, we're in
Yeah.
charge of different types of assets and creative design, messaging, trade shows, brochures, you name it. We're busy. And so I think that a lot of times where you can really deliver value as an agency is by saying like, give us this body of work. Let us help you. Like, let us be an extension of your team and like take this, let's say paid media, take this body of work of paid media kind of off your plate. Let us do some of the thinking about like, okay, how should this business really be playing in the paid media space? How can this business win through paid media? And bringing some of our thought leadership back to you, right? And
Mm,
so that's where I think ultimately value lies in a marketer having confidence and believing that that agency partner is going to have the thought leadership, help them like hit their KPIs, right? Everybody need like KPIs aren't a bad word. We need to hit those
yeah.
things. And if we don't, we need to have confidence that our agency partner will be able to like explain to us and up the chain
Right.
like what's happening. Do we have a problem with our messaging? Do we have a problem with our product, and are our competitors like doing something differently? So anyway, I think that value in the end is around like feeling just like a good fit, that like this agency partner has got my back when it comes to this body of work.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you were talking, I was kept reminded of they always say don't focus on the outcome, like focus on the journey
Yeah,
and the outcome will follow.
right,
And a lot of the things you're talking about, I mean, yes, KPIs are important, but if all you're focused on is the KPI,
right.
I think you'll start to take some shortcuts. You'll start to kind of spray and pray on the different tactics, but
Mm-hmm.
when you focus on the evergreen things like okay, you have to deliver great content when it's digital marketing. You have to speak clearly about what the data is telling you. Like these are just these core principles and tenets.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are doing all of those things, like results should follow,
Right.
right? If your communication is top notch, meaning you let the client know these are things we need to be watching out for here in the next 3 months, just letting you know in advance, here are the things that we're going to do. And so that brings assurance from the client side of like, okay, I don't have to read the headlines and be worried because I know you've got them
Yeah, yeah,
like on watch and you're letting me know that you're doing that. So okay, I can kind of rest easy a little bit and focus on the things I need to focus on.
yeah, yeah. I, it is for me really curious about how people describe like what it is that's fracturing in their relationships with their agency partners. Um, there's also a lot of pressures. Like there's budgetary pressure happening right now. So that can play into the value, right? It's just like, well, is there a way for me to get the same level of service or delivery at a lower cost, right? And so that's where that value equation can also play. But in my estimation, if a partner is in fact delivering on what they say, and helping you reach those KPIs. And if we aren't reaching those KPIs, they're helping explain to you why not and coming up with insights that are driving recommendations. Like now there's value there as well, right? So um anyway, budgetary pressures are real. People are looking to like uh, extract value by like getting, spending less. But I would say, like, in the end, it's all about, do you have confidence or not in that agency partner? Are they going to help you deliver what you need to deliver, or explain why things aren't going the way that they need to be going?
Yeah, you know, when I think about value, um, especially in an agency relationship, I think you're right that there is this feeling, and I know that, okay, this is the value that I was expecting to get. I'm getting the results, and usually I'm also going to say something like, I'm getting the results and I can rely on them. They always let me know if I need to be worried about something or celebrate something.
Yeah.
Like when you start to paint the picture of a strong relationship, it's not just only good. It's being transparent,
Yep.
being accountable, clearly knowing what our roles are on this boat that we're rowing together on.
Yep.
And that is what makes me feel confident, and that's giving me value.
Right.
Like I kind of think about where, you know, in previous companies, you would have someone that's exceptionally smart and but they are completely withdrawn in conversations and meetings, doesn't communicate a lot.
Yep.
They just stick to their own thing, but you know that they're brilliant. Over time, that's gonna wear on you, right?
Right.
Because you need to
You want to
hear
extract more.
exactly. And so, like, I think about that value and the equation to that. It is just so much more than just I need to get the results,
Right.
because you can get results but be a terrible partner, and the expiration date on that relationship will probably,
Yeah.
reduce because of just it's not as easy to work with you and,
Right.
row this boat together.
Yeah.
And I know that as part of unpacking that value, we're talking about value, and then there are the inputs in order to get the value out of this relationship.
Hmm.
And so this is going to lead to the second reason, top reason
Okay.
companies are planning to leave their agency, and that's delivery. So value is number one, and delivery is number two. And I think
Yeah.
we can go way deep into delivery, but just general, what's your thoughts on why that's number two, and like how can that be repaired?
Yeah. I feel like delivery is all about like managing expectations.
Yeah.
So delivery is about like understanding, are we aligned on what we need to be accomplishing? Do we have a plan to accomplish those things? Is it clear what we're working on? Is it clear who's accountable for that work? Are we on track or off track? And so, like at Augurian, we have a number of tools that we use to ensure that we have that level of delivery. So the first is like we use this rock planning process, so like goal planning process, to really get aligned. Like, okay, overarching, what is the company trying to do? Then what is the marketing team trying to do and being held accountable to by the company? So we understand those things at the highest level at like a 12-month kind of annual scope. And then we start to say, okay, well, how is our service, SEO, paid media analytics, like how do we plug into those things?
Hmm.
So once we understand how we plug into those things and we are clear on it with the client, now we can start to say, okay, well, here are the things that we can do to move the dial to help achieve those kind of larger company goals. And this is what that could look like over the course of the next year. Then we break that down into like these quarterly kind of sub tasks or rocks, we call them, right? These quarterly goals. So now all of a sudden our clients understand broadly what we're trying to accomplish and we're agreed on that. Then we understand, well, here's what we're going to do in this first quarter that's going to help us achieve that broader goal. So that's around managing expectations. That's around being aligned on goals. So that's part of the process that we use. And so when I think about delivery, I think about, how are you managing expectations? How are you communicating what you're working on? How are you demonstrating that you're on track and that you're accountable to that work? There's a lot of times where I'm in conversations with prospective clients and they're like, I don't exactly know what the agency is even working on. They say they do SEO, they bill us for SEO, but like I don't tangibly know what that looks like on a monthly basis. And so I think it's our job as on the agency side to really like demystify that and show clients like, no, SEO is not some black box wizardry that happens behind the curtain. Like, here's exactly what we're planning on doing. Here's how we're going to do it. Here are the steps that it takes, and here's who's accountable for it, and whether we're on track or off track.
Yeah, I mean, there that a big takeaway from that whole process is removing as much ambiguity as you can.
Right.
When there's an unknown, you're gonna be floating, and at some point, floating turns into like wandering. And when you're
And
wandering, and
assumptions.
assumptions, exactly. So in that silence becomes really loud because
Yeah.
now you're thinking about all these different scenarios, and all of a sudden you get an email pop up and say, hey, there's a Google algorithm that just happened, or man, you just saw some other person post on LinkedIn about how they're getting all these great results. I mean, you start to just fill your
Yeah.
mind with all of these things because you're not getting anything from your partner, your agency partner,
Right.
or maybe vice versa.
Yeah.
And that becomes very toxic very quickly.
Yep.
And that is a scenario that happens, I mean, a lot of times.
It's just got me thinking about something kind of silly. But
Okay.
so I'm a father of teenagers, right? And so there's times in my life where like I cannot get a response from my teenager. And so then I'm like, well, where is she? Like, what is she doing? Why is she not responding to me? Right? Why are there like can't talk right now messages coming back when I'm calling or texting? And so then I'm like, find my iPhone. Okay, where is she? And I'm actually looking now on a map, like where is she? And then like, what is she doing? Like 15 minutes away from the house in the car. She has the car, and I now all of a sudden my head's going to like, well, what could she be doing? And you just start getting all worked up, and if she would just text or answer the
Oh
phone,
man.
right?
Yeah.
All that kind of goes away. So I'm just like equating this to like parenting, because it's like that. If as agencies, we can just be really good at helping
Mm.
our clients understand, like, no, here's what we're doing. Here's what we're working on. Is it working or isn't it working? Like, that level of transparency and accountability, I think, is what like takes the delivery kind of off the table as one of the things that could be fracturing the.
I can relate with this in a lot of different ways too. Well, one of them is because of when there's silence in the house and my kids are not saying anything.
Well, you got little ones.
Yeah, so I've got 2-year-old
Yeah.
twins, and you just know they're up to no good,
Right.
right?
They're in a cabinet. They found
Exactly.
something new that they're not supposed to be
Yep.
touching.
And so now I'm like, okay, they're not saying anything. I'm calling out to them, and I can clearly hear something going on, and I know it's not good. So
Yeah.
yeah, then that happens. But even in professionally speaking, when I would get, when I would see headlines about certain things, and I needed to manage expectations in the past, very early on, I would try to create a really quality, thorough response to this when really all I could have done or I should have done is let them know, hey, I saw this pop up. I'm looking into it. Just let you know. As opposed to spending all this time making sure I have a very confident answer and then delivering to them
Yeah.
when that could have been done, and then they can be like, oh no, you don't even need to worry about it
Yeah.
because it's not really that important. Then I would have saved myself a lot of time.
Sure.
But there are those types of things too that even for agencies, sometimes just letting them know
Yeah.
and setting the expectation that, hey, I'm not going to be able to get to this tomorrow, but would Monday be fine or would Wednesday be fine?
Yep.
And you'll hear more often than not, yeah, that's okay.
Yep.
And that is all that took was communication.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that communication is really important.
Well, I think another thing about delivery then, so like if we have all these planning processes and we have this alignment and we understand what's going on, it's like how are we documenting this stuff, right?
Oh yeah.
And so I think that's another big piece to this is like, where do the decisions that we've agreed upon live? And so what we've done at Augurian is we've developed these program workbooks, right? And so there's a workbook that is accessible to our team and to the client 24/7, right? Online, and they can go, because marketers are busy doing other things. They can go and kind of remind themselves, what is it that the SEO team is, what did we agree on? What are they working on? And there's a place, kind of a source of truth that exists for everyone to be able to reference and understand like the documentation behind what we're trying to work on. So when I think about delivery, not only is it like in great planning, great alignment, great communication, but it's also in the documentation side of
Mm.
things. So that's another piece to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Documentation. What the beauty of documentation, and that really to me is starting to paint the picture of a system. A system is a series of rules, a series of documents and assets that work together so that you don't have to rely on just you, like your sheer
Right.
willpower to make all these things happen. And, I talk about this in a LinkedIn Live I'm running for the rest of this month
Mm-hmm.
every week. Check it out.
Check it out.
Uh, but it is about when you're looking at a new agency, if you are looking at an agency, there is sometimes this fixation on I just need the lowest cost or really affordable agency, whether or not that's like way low in my budget or usually you'll try to get a cheaper agency sometimes.
Yep.
And the drawbacks from that is, in my opinion, is that the more the higher the value of the agency, usually that does correlate with how strong their system and processes are and how good their documentation is. If you go and you sign up with us and we go under contract, you'll see in our onboarding process, and we've gotten a lot of great feedback and reviews because of our onboarding.
Yeah.
It's very structured. We know exactly what we want to ask you because we've done this so many times. We've had, so we go through our onboarding checklist. We have that meeting. We know exactly what we're going to say.
Yep.
We want to hear certain things from you so that we can now translate that and make sure and then that kicks off the next process. The workbooks get created. I mean,
Yep.
it is like a machine
Yeah.
to some degree. And that is something you will miss if all you're focused on is what can I get a cheaper agency or a lower cost agency?
Yeah.
You have to know that process is really important. The documentation is really important. And sometimes you do need to look beyond and think more value
Mm-hmm.
than cost.
Yep.
And that will save a lot of headaches in the future.
Yeah, well, and that LinkedIn Live that's about kind of choose how do you go about choosing the right agency.
Yeah.
I do think one of the big suggestions in there is to say like, here's some questions that you should ask,
Yeah.
and a number of those questions are about process, are about documentation, are about accountability, right? Are about transparency, and so like those are things that I believe like more sophisticated agencies like Augurian have like really good answers to.
Mm.
They have processes and systems in place that they can share with you, and so yeah, when you think about delivery as like something that could be fracturing your relationship with your agency, if that agency has a good system, has a good documentation, if you understand like who's working on what and if they're on track or off track, then like delivery really shouldn't be what's breaking you up.
Yeah.
Now, there's one other aspect that I think is I've seen from a delivery perspective that also can play into whether you're feeling confident or good about kind of the agency relationship, and that is around how meetings are run. So I think like meeting structure is also important. One of the things that we do is if you've been sitting in a meeting before where like the agency is basically reading you a report and telling you, okay, this number is up and this number is down, and like that isn't great delivery, in my opinion, right? Nobody wants to sit in a monthly meeting and have someone read a report to them. We can do that on our own, in our own time, asynchronously. And so the recognition that we have in our process is we send what we call pre-meeting insights, where we send the report, We say, here's what the report says for us. Here's some of the insights that we have based on the data that we're seeing. Here are some of the things that we want to talk to you about in our upcoming monthly meeting. So then when people show up at that monthly meeting, we aren't sitting through a reporting session where somebody's reading a report. No, everybody is accountable to having digested the pre-meeting insights, and we're spending the time together actually talking about what are those recommended next steps. Can we actually pivot or do these things differently? Or here's an opportunity that we're seeing. It also gives opportunity for the client to show up and say, hey, we've got a new product launch, or we want to put a different emphasis on this thing this month because of the cycle that we're in as a business. And so I would just say, like, another big piece of delivery is like how it is that you actually run meetings.
Yeah, as you're saying that, I think a good question really to ask is like, how have you improved your delivery when you're looking at agencies, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a really strong sign that if they're constantly improving the process of their delivery, that means they're taking the feedback in from their clients and
Yep.
saying, we need to sharpen this, improve this. And the pre-meeting insights, when that was born, it was because like in those meetings, it didn't feel like we're getting the most out of this.
Yep.
Because, oftentimes this will maybe happen on a monthly basis.
Yep.
Some clients on
Super
a
high
quarterly.
cost.
Yeah.
You
And
got
so
lots of really expensive people sitting in a room.
exactly. And these meetings should really be about communication, right?
Yeah.
Again, communication keeps coming up, but instead of us regurgitating what's on the report, it should be about what actions should we take.
Yep.
How do we
Exactly.
get to hit our results that we want?
Yep.
And that is another great symbol of strong communication.
Yeah.
That's really vital in any relationship.
Yep.
So, yeah, so I mean, that's actually segueing into the number one area that these companies want agencies to improve on
Mm-hmm.
is communication. We've talked so much about that. There's two ways, right? There's like the structured communication, and then there is, I guess, unstructured communication where things will happen that you weren't planning for, and
Yeah.
then there are the things that you just know this has to happen on a reoccurring basis.
Yep.
And I remember when we talked to one of our clients, and one of the things that she really was surprised by was the speed in communication.
Yeah.
And this is a pattern across all industries, across different job descriptions. Like in sales, there was this phrase that I used to hear was, speed to lead. Again, this is also going into that void of if I don't hear from you,
Yeah.
other things will start filling in and you're
Yeah.
going to lose your opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think there is this part of communication must be fast
Mm-hmm.
too. You don't want me waiting for your response, because what am I going to start doing? I'm going to start reading headlines.
Yeah.
And I'm going to start thinking about things that I shouldn't be thinking about.
Yeah.
That won't lead to confidence.
Yeah. I just feel like, again, it's about managing expectations. So the minute that you say, hey, I can turn this proposal around to you, how about by the end of the week? And they say, perfect. Okay, well, maybe you just gave yourself 3 days to kind of get that in order, but at least it's understood. Like there is kind of a personal covenant that you've been able to achieve, and everybody understands, okay, in the next 3 days, I should be getting this proposal, right? So I think managing expectations is important. I think as a client, on the client side, you have to be really vocal about what it is that you expect. And I think on the agency side, then we need to be willing to like challenge that if it really becomes an impossibility, right? And so at times, you can have clients that say, look, I really need that by this date because I have this meeting. Well, we step up and we make that happen. But there could be, out of office. There could be all kinds of reasons why we might not be able to like rise to that occasion. And as on the agency side, we also need to be able to communicate and say, look, like, I can get that to you by Monday. I can't get that to you by Friday because of this, that, or the other. And you just have to work it out. Or it's like, nope, I do need that by Friday. Okay, great, but that means that a different team member is, I'm going to have to pull in a different team member. Is that so? Just and if they say, yeah, Brett, pull in a different team member, at least now it's understood that like other people will be working on it, maybe somebody that they aren't as familiar with, but we do just, it is a relationship. You need to be able to have a little bit of give and take, and everybody needs to kind of show up and say what they need.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is like, like marriage counseling, right? You need
Yeah.
you need to show up and talk about what it is that you in fact need, and you also need to be willing to understand that on the other side of the coin, that person, that agency, that client might not be able to get there with you, right? So, but like that's like where the good stuff lives, in my opinion, right? And if you can actually have those conversations, that's when you get like a different level of comfort, confidence, vulnerability. Kind of, it gets real, like personal. You just get a different vibe, and I think vibe is like super important um, when we talk about these types of agency relationships and whether we're breaking up or not.
Mm. Yeah, there's like I think of the word professional and professionalism, and that in some ways people will think that's positive, but I think in the closest relationships that you have, it's not buttoned up.
Yeah,
It's not so structured, and I have to wear a suit, and I got to make sure I put on my best impression in front of you. It's there's more of like an intimate, like, hey, I can be who I am, and now when I'm talking to you, I can literally let you know without sugarcoating
yeah,
something, and I can just tell you straight, like, this is what's going on. This is making me like feel a certain type of way. Like, we need to figure this out.
yeah,
And that is a level of comfort that you need to like. I think that's a great sign of an agency client relationship
mhm,
that has really been able to trust each other
yep,
and have confidence that even if results aren't good, I know you've got my back and I've got yours. And then when things are great, hey, we can high five each other. And
yeah,
I think that's, yeah, that it does require a little bit of vulnerability to
mhm,
go there.
yeah,
And when clients are very vocal, it allows that to kind of open up,
yeah,
because then we are able to also be vocal and join you, and then eventually we'll meet in the middle somewhere, and that is like the first steps to becoming a lot more confident in each other.
yeah. I mean, it's refreshing when you get to that place in that kind of client
Yeah.
agency relationship. Um, because in the end, what I think we get to is everybody everybody understands that we're all trying to do the same thing. Like, we all care very much about the success of what we're trying to do together. And once you have like everybody recognizing that everybody else in the room cares very deeply
Mm.
about like trying to get these results, um, then we can kind of unlock what we've talked about as radical candor, right? So where people can care, everybody understands, we all care very much about this, and we may have divergent thinking. Like, you might think about this in a different way than I think about it, but if we both realize that we both care about the results and we care about what we're trying to do, then we can really have a lot of candor. And so I do think that like part of a effective kind of healthy communication is the recognition that we're all trying to get these results. None of us wants to not get these results.
Yeah.
Nobody's working against that. So let's all figure out how together we can work towards that. And it's important, and there has to be recognition by everybody in the room that everybody is actually on the same team trying to do that. But we can have differences of opinion, and that actually is healthy. So that's like the like, for me, the golden nugget of
Yeah.
communication is when we can achieve that with our clients and partners.
So in this same survey, they talk about, or they ask these companies that are working with agencies, what's the most desired attribute
Yeah.
in your agency partner or a new agency partner? And a few years ago, it used to be industry expertise and experience.
Sure.
And with every year that has gone down, and what has gone up is chemistry.
Hmm.
And now in 2023, when the survey came out, chemistry was the number one desired trait
Yeah.
or attribute that they wanted in an agency partner.
Yep.
And I think everything that we're talking about are all part of the equation of when you have great
Yeah.
chemistry. And yeah, and so I think the communication is a core tenet. I mean, I do think about, again, if you're getting the results, but you just have a partner you cannot stand,
Yeah.
that's not chemistry.
Right.
And then it's also important, as part of that chemistry, that you have space to be able to be that way, because you have the systems in place, you have the documentation in place, so
Yeah.
that you can have those hard conversations, but enriching conversations too.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, what are your thoughts on, like, what do you think chemistry means when they're saying that's my desired,
Mm-hmm.
most desired attribute of an agency partner?
Yeah. I think again, it's the words that we choose, and
Yeah.
maybe like they put that word on the list. Uh, for me, again, chemistry feels like a symptom of what confidence really is.
Hmm.
Confidence being that underlying feeling or emotion that I think a marketer wants to have in their agency partner.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I would challenge that, like, hey, if we like totally vibe but we get no results, like, we're breaking up. Like, I don't care if you're awesome, we can laugh and we have
Yeah.
fun, and we go out to hang out and stuff. The chemistry is great, but if we don't get results, like, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be curious a little bit to unpack that word
Mm-hmm.
chemistry some more. I do think the vibe is important. I think that we need to understand that, like, we're business, like, these are serious things that we're trying to do and achieve in the business, and it's important that we achieve those things, but that doesn't mean that we can't have fun
Right.
while we're doing it, right? So I think there's also this idea that, like, business is serious and it's important, and yes it is, but, like, can we also make it fun? Like, I think we should try to figure out ways to make it fun. um but for me, like, if I were to unpack chemistry, I think it has more to do with, like, we need a shared mindset and a shared set of values, right? And I think where I've seen us as an agency get tripped up is when, like, values and mindset aren't aligned. So I can give you an example. Like, when um, we have a client that is like, I need this by tomorrow at noon, and we're just like, like, we cannot physically make that happen for you, and they are resistant to, like, hearing when it is that we could deliver whatever they're asking for. That feels like not like not like a partnership, right? When I think about, like, mindset, shared mindset, we talk a lot about we need to be building a learning organization, not a ride or die KPI chasing organization. So I think, where I've seen misalignment in some of our client relationships is when we have, on the client side, people who only are focused on those KPIs. And when we show up and say, look, we're not hitting these because of these reasons, and we need to pivot or make some changes, or we need to rethink kind of how we're positioning, like, the product itself is not winning in the marketplace, no matter how good a marketer, digital marketing we put out there, if the product doesn't compete in the marketplace in the ways it needs to, it won't be successful. And if they're just, like, resistant to hearing kind of some of those perspectives, I think that's where, like, that misalignment comes from. So um we try very hard to, through this type of, through podcasts, through the content that we create, to talk a lot about, we need to be building learning organizations, not ride or die KPI chasing organizations, because we're trying very hard at Augurian to say that's what we're about. Like that's our mindset, that's our values. And if you want to go just chase KPIs and that's all you want to do, there's other agencies for you. But if you want to build a learning organization, if you want to, and I adamantly believe that learning organizations will ultimately win in the marketplace. If you want to do that, then Augurian is the right agency for you. So chemistry for me has a lot more to do with like, do we have alignment around values? Do we have a shared mindset? And can we have some fun? But ultimately, like you are going to break up with your agency if they're not getting any results for you, even if you vibe with them, right? So it's chemistry is like a weird word for me.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I would add one more thing to that. And the way that I look at the chemistry word is it's that shared mindset, the shared values, and then shared success.
Yeah.
Because when you think about like NFL teams that are they're like we've got solid team chemistry, it's because they're winning too,
Yeah.
And so I
They're
think that's
winning teams.
yeah, the winning teams will have usually better chemistry, and so I think there is. I feel like for me, those three things, if those are happening, like that's when you know you've got chemistry, because results should come from the learning, the shared mindset, the shared values.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these are a lot of things we unpacked today about how do you make sure you have a solid agency partner. If you are looking for a new partner or even the ones you have today, I think it's worth reflecting on it. Take some of these things, start to apply it into your own agency relationships too, because sometimes, I mean, it takes two to make this agent like the partnership actually
Yeah, of
work.
course.
And so I think for some of you, it might be, hey, I want to take these takeaways, try them out, and see if that improves the relationship. And if it still doesn't improve, then I think yes, the chemistry is probably not there.
Yeah.
And it is important that you start to, you know, apply these things for your next agency partner candidates. And so, this was a great conversation.
Yeah, it was.
This is episode 6. I mean, I can't believe it's already been 6 episodes. We've got a couple more coming. By the time this comes out, we'll probably have already shot the other episodes
Okay.
with the guests. So really excited for all of you guys to stay tuned to those. And really, again, thank you guys for tuning in and appreciate your time, Josh.
Yeah, there we go.